Once there was a fourth grade teacher in a small Michigan town who undertook the sometimes difficult but always critical challenge of helping her students feel good about themselves. But ironically, instead of asking them to focus on all the things they believed they were good at, she asked them to list on a sheet of paper all the things they believed they could not do. One 10-year-old girl's list began, "I can't kick the soccer ball past second base. I can't do long division with more than 3 numerals. I can't get Debbie to like me." On it went, the catalog of her failures spilling over one page and onto a second. A young boy's list started with, "I can't do 10 push-ups. I can't hit one over the left field fence. I can't eat only 1 cookie." This, too, was just the tip of the iceberg. The teacher also had written a list. "I can't get Johnny's mother to come in for a conference. I can't get Alan to use words instead of fists. I can't get my own daughter to put gas in the car." After about 10 minutes, the teacher had the students fold their pages in half and bring them to her desk. Each student placed his or her list into the empty box she had waiting there, and then the teacher added hers. She put the top on the box and asked all the kids to go get their coats. Together, they left the classroom, walked down the hall past the maintenance office where one of the custodians was waiting with a shovel, and then out into the playground they went. At the far end of the playground, they dug a hole, each student taking a turn at the shovel. Then the teacher placed the box of "I can'ts" into the hole about 3 feet deep, and then they covered it up. The students stood around the gravesite where each one, their teacher too, had buried a list of failings. Then the teacher began to speak. "Friends, we gather here today to honor the memory of I Can't. While he was with us on earth, he touched the lives of everyone, some more than others. His name, unfortunately, has been spoken in every public building, homes, schools, city halls, state capitals, and yes, even the White House. We have provided I Can't with a final resting place and a headstone that contains his epitaph. He is survived by his brothers and sister, I can, I will, and I'm going to right away. They are not yet as well known as their famous relative, and are certainly not yet as strong or as powerful. But perhaps someday, with your help, they will make an even bigger mark on the world. May I Can't rest in peace, and may everyone present pick up their lives and move forward in his absence, and let us all say, Amen." I'll return to the story shortly. But now to the parashah. This week's is Ki Tetzei, to be followed next week by Ki Tavo. I wouldn't normally focus so narrowly on the titles of the portions, but taken together, they are intriguing, because Ki Tetzei means when you depart, and Ki Tavo means when you arrive. And side by side, they suggest to me an important truth. Setting out for a destination and actually reaching it are 2 different enterprises. And this is true both literally, physically, as the Torah narrative reveals, and metaphorically, spiritually, as that sweet story makes plain. Literally, Deuteronomy speaks to the Ki Tavo generation, the Israelites whom Moses addresses, those who will enter the promised land, are not the Israelites who departed Egypt 40 years earlier. That generation had perished in the wilderness. In fact, the journey begun by one generation is very rarely completed by that same generation. Parents make a beginning and then hand to their children their hopes and their dreams for them to realize. I recall how when I lived in Israel 30 years ago, each Sunday night I would visit an Ethiopian family who had only recently arrived as Olim, immigrants. They lived in a trailer park outside of Jerusalem. The parents had bravely undertaken the trek from Addis Ababa. They knew they would never truly become part of Israeli society, but they hoped their children one day would be, and that is why they had made the journey. And was it not much the same for some of our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents when they came to America? That, I would believe, is why Ki Tavo follows Ki Teitzei, but is separate from it. Setting out and arriving are often two distinct undertakings. It is true for physical journeys and our spiritual ones. Each of us knows this too well. How many times have we set out to accomplish some goal and we come to some obstacle that we simply feel we cannot overcome? Or a crossroads where we get waylaid, interrupted. It happens all the time. Something comes up that demands our more immediate attention, or we run out of time or patience or desire. Sometimes we're able to return to the goal and achieve it. Sometimes it just gets left unfulfilled. Rosh Hashanah arrives 3 weeks from tonight. Each year, the High Holy Days challenge us to set for ourselves new aspirations for the year ahead, or to renew our pursuit of old ones, important ones. I will spend more time with my family. I will tend to my relationships with my friends. I will be more patient, more forgiving. I will believe in myself. We each make our own lists. And then Ki Teitzei, we set out filled with intention and conviction. But invariably along the way, we hit a bump in the road, we get pulled off course, our goals begin to recede in the distance once again. And pretty soon some of those I wills get harder and harder to fulfill. Eventually they become I'll tries, and then I wish I coulds, and finally I can'ts. To return to the story of the teacher and her fourth graders, all those I can'ts are a heavy enough burden for children to carry. But we adults, we've been living with our I can'ts, our discouragements and failures a heck of a lot longer than they have. And we've had time to discover more of them. Collectively, they can be even harder for us to overcome. But if the holy days are going to offer us a chance at renewal of our relationships and our dreams, we do need to try. The ceremony of Tashlich, when we stand by the water's edge, Rosh Hashanah afternoon, is typically understood as a casting off of sin. But the story suggests it should also be a casting off of self-doubt, because that may be the greatest obstacle we face to moving forward. It's never a foregone conclusion that we will reach our goals. The Israelites do enter the promised land, but not in the Torah, only in the next biblical book, Joshua. The last verses of Deuteronomy always leave them preparing to enter. And then the Torah ends, and we go back and read it again. And here too we learn. There are some destinations we as a society are constantly struggling to reach. Sometimes the best we can hope for is to advance the cause a few steps forward and pass on to the next generation the tools and the values to continue the effort. And individually too, the spiritual journey of tikkun midot, personal growth, is never complete. Rather, every attempt brings us a little bit closer to the people we hope to be. The most important goals are bound to be the most difficult to attain. But if we have faith in our own abilities and a vision of what the future could hold if we look past our perceived limitations, if we put the I can'ts where they belong, then we might just surprise ourselves. Shabbat Shalom.